Hello and welcome everybody to my 10-minute introduction to MERA, Method Evaluation and Risk Assessment. Let's get going. I've set my timer so I don't mess up. Okay. The basic problem is that the vast majority of the world's fisheries are data limited. We may not have or ever have sufficient data to estimate stock status. In this figure, which is based on UN numbers, you can see that the shading tells you what fraction are unassessed, and red beaming around 80 to 90%, and that's most areas in the world. Only a few is it the minority situation. For most places, the majority of stocks are unassessed and are data moderate or data poor. So it's unlikely right now, and maybe ever, that those stocks will have a data-rich stock assessment that can pass peer review. It may not be possible to reconstruct the historical data reliably to do that kind of work. So stock status is uncertain now, and it may always be uncertain. So what are we going to do? Is that the end of the road? Does this endeavor of fisheries management, does it stop there? So that's a big science problem. There's a management problem, and that is in those regions, a framework is needed to start making progress. A framework where people can come together, scientists, managers, stakeholders, synthesize their data and talk about all the different dynamics of that fishery and accumulate that in a sort of document about what's going on and what the best state of knowledge is. Preferably, they'll talk about management objectives. They'll have a system of prioritizing research, and I suppose the best case scenario is they could possibly identify a sustainable management approach for that fishery. So we've got a scientific problem about not knowing stock status and a management problem where we need to take action today and bring together these viewpoints and data. Fisheries actually has a solution to this problem. It's already found a framework, a quantitative framework for dealing with situations where there's high uncertainty, and that is Management Strategy Evaluation, MSE. MSE is a system or a quantitative framework in which fishery dynamics, how things grow and are caught and all the rest of it, all those dynamics are assigned plausible states of nature, and then in a simulation, you test ideas for management. And that means that you can have really uncertain fishing dynamics and really bad quality data and still potentially find a management solution that works under all that uncertainty. It could be a type of assessment and control. It could be a size limit. It could be a spatial closure. The question is, how can we get MSE working so that we can apply it in these data limited and data moderate fisheries? And that's the objective here of MERA, a web-based application for doing data limited and data moderate MSE so that we can make progress and address all those problems that we just stated in the scientific and management parts of that problem statement. So let's quickly talk about what MERA is. It's a web page with a website you can go to and find out all about it. It started out as a collaboration with the Marine Stewardship Council, the University of British Columbia, and the Natural Resources Defense Council. It's all about this idea of using an online app to do MSE. Here's what it looks like. This is the splash page, essentially, when you turn up to MERA. And at its heart is this, a quantitative questionnaire. That is a set of 30 questions about the fishery and how it's managed and the data that are available, which enable you to characterize the operating model, that is the dynamics of an MSE. Each of those questions, here we are on question 2 of the fishery, has got a graphical description. It's got in-line help for how to answer this question, including references. It also has a place where you can document any of the rationale or basis for your question. And most importantly, you can click unknown and choose a very high degree of uncertainty in all of the fishery dynamics for that question. So you can have very uncertain operating models. So you work your way through these 30 questions. And then what can you do? Well, first of all, you can document it. So you can go up to the reports and create a report of all the things you answered and why you gave those questions, they gave those answers and your justifications. So you get automatic reporting for all parts of MERA. A report looks something like this, where you can see, for example, the longevity question, we answered this is why we did it, and it includes the figure. So you can report all of those things and consolidate all of that information in that process that you undertook using MERA. So that was the example report. Once you've got your operating model from the questionnaire, you can start testing management procedures. These are ways of managing your fishery, things like size limits and spatial closures, or the use of a data limited control rule. And in MERA, we have access to the more than 100 data poor and all the way to data rich MPs that are available in the Open MSE R library. So we have lots of options, default options for testing management types. So you can select those. You can run your MSE live and get these types of outputs, biomass and yield projections for each of the approaches you've used. So these are all management approaches. And you can see how they projected their biomass and what the levels were. So you can start to get real ideas about successful or not performance of candidate management options for your fishery. You can do it live online using a quantitative questionnaire. And the idea here is that these figures and these tables could help you choose potentially an interim management procedure. You also can find out which of the questions you answered had the biggest impact in the performance of that MP. So here we have an MP called DBSRA. In this case, variability, this was the question that you answered, number 6 in the fishery, that one had the biggest impact. So the uncertainty in that question had the biggest impact in the yield performance of this MP. So you can learn what your research gaps are. Of the uncertainty that you specified in the questionnaire, what was the most important for determining your management outcomes? So MERA will actually guide you in the direction of research priorities. Another thing that MERA can do is status determination. You can upload your data to MERA in a formatted data object, and it will condition operating models that you've specified in the questionnaire to those data to make sure that the fishery simulations are credible. That also gives you status determination. It tells you what the state of the stock is, given that the data that you uploaded. So it does model fitting online as well and tells you what the status of your stock is based on those data, or your best estimate of the status. Another thing it can do is that once you're using a management procedure, it can check that the data you're seeing look like the data you projected. So in this case, we started using an MP in 2010, and we observed these data points. And here you can see they don't look necessarily like the data we projected when we adopted the MP. So this is a way of empirically checking, if you're using a management procedure established by MERA, that the data that you're actually observing when you're using it are similar to those which you expected to see when you use that management procedure. So this is an additional safety net, an additional empirical check. Other things that MERA does is it reports all of these features, the status, the management performance, and management planning modes. You can load and save your whole MERA session, so you don't have to do calculations again. MERA is based on the R package Open MSE, so you can export any objects to and from those libraries and run them in R. It has a comprehensive manual, and the underlying software behind MERA, Open MSE, has been peer-reviewed as part of a data-rich MSE processes in Canada. So in terms of the scientific problem, yes, we now have an approach for providing advice when we have high uncertainty in stock status. So our scientific problem is addressed with MSE. In terms of the management problem, we have now a system where we can synthesize data, document our knowledge in the fishery, we can discuss management performance, prioritize our research, and we can identify a sustainable management procedure that we can use in the interim. So please come visit the website at merafish.org. And just know that we're publishing a paper on this right now. So this is all going through the peer review process at Frontiers. And you can see my prestigious co-authors here who have contributed. Big thanks goes to the Marine Stewardship Council that commissioned this and have been working with me throughout. We also have benefited from the David and Lucille Packard Foundation, the Natural Resources Defence Council contributions, and input from the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization. The co-authors for MERA are listed here, thanks to all of you guys, and special thanks to the developers of DLM Tool, SAM Tool, and MSE Tool. That's Adrian Hordyke and Kwang Nguyen, because they've really built a lot of the software and code that supports this. I'm very happy to take questions now, and thank you for listening. Cheers.